Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be talking about the book of Amos and especially chapter 8. So with the book of Amos, he was a shepherd and a fig farmer, I believe, from Judah, the southern half of the people Israel, and he went to the northern nation of Israel to prophesy against the king and just all of the bad things that were going on there. But then he also gives a lot of other prophecies to other nations. And so in chapter 8, he's giving a very strong rebuke and declaring a day of mourning that's going to come on the nation of Israel as God brings judgment for the wrong things that they've continually done and not repented of. And so what happens in here is that it says in verse 7 of chapter 8, "The Lord has sworn by the pride of Jacob, surely I will never forget any of their deeds. Shall not the land tremble on this account, and everyone mourn who dwells in it, and all of it rise like the Nile, and be tossed about and sink again like the Nile of Egypt? And on that day, declares the Lord God, I will make the sun go down at noon, and darken the earth in broad daylight. I will turn your feasts into mourning, and all your songs into lamentation. I will bring sackcloth on every waist and baldness on every head. I will make it like the mourning for an only child, and the end of it like a bitter day. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord God, when I will send a famine on the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord. They shall wander from sea to sea, and from north to east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, but they shall not find it." So what's amazing about this passage is that this happens a lot in prophecies where there's an immediate fulfillment of something, and then there is a final or ultimate fulfillment of that later on. And typically it has something to do with the Messiah, Jesus. And so what's interesting about this passage is that it says that God remembers their deeds and that the land will tremble on this account and everyone will mourn who dwells in it. And so what's interesting is that the day of the Lord, when Jesus is offered on the cross as a sacrifice for everyone's sin throughout history, he it's not him, it's the land around him experiences an earthquake. And there's this massive earthquake when he dies. I think it's the moment that he gives up his breath. And so there's this massive earthquake that goes through, and everyone is mourning this earthquake and the destruction that it causes, and especially to the temple. And so then it says, on that day, I will make the sun go down at noon, which is exactly what happens, right? So Jesus is on the cross. I believe it's from 9 to noon. And then at noon, the sky goes dark. And for 3 hours, everything is dark and everyone is starting to wonder who this guy is. And then at 3 o'clock, he dies. And so it also says that there will be mourning like the mourning for an only child. So obviously the only son of God, it says an only son. Jesus is the only true son of God. And all of us like sheep have wandered away. But it's amazing that it's perfect declaration of what was going to happen on that day when Jesus died. And then when he rises from the grave, later, and then comes into the city and meets a bunch of people. Many of them recognize him and choose to follow him, but many more continue to rebuke him and reject him and choose not to listen to him and believe that he truly is the Messiah because they had a different expectation in their heart. And so it's interesting that God says that the days are coming when there will be a famine of hearing the words of the Lord, and it says that they will search and seek the word of the Lord, but they will not find it. And that's the first declaration in the book of John, is that in the beginning was the Word, right? And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So Jesus, who is God himself, he comes down and he demonstrates the character and the nature of God to his people, and yet they still mostly don't recognize him and don't choose to follow him. And then when he leaves, they're left in a desert of hearing the word of the Lord. There is no more to hear because he has declared everything. He's spoken to his people and they refuse to listen. And so I just urge you today, listen. Do not harden your heart. Do not be like those who were in the desert, who were in even in oases of plenty and abundance, and yet had not the word of the Lord and refused it and rejected it and were left empty. Because sooner or later, every oasis will dry up. Every store of food, of clothing, of money, every object in your life will pass away, and Jesus is the only one who will not. And anyone who is found in him will live forever, but everyone who chooses not to identify with him, who chooses not to cling to him, they will burn. And it's not a thing of hatred, it's a choice of love. If I choose to love God, I will live with him forever. But if I choose to identify with the things that he hates, I have no place in his presence. And I, to be honest, wouldn't want to be there in his presence because I love what he hates, right? And so I just urge you, please listen to his voice. Call to him. He's not far. He's right here with you. He hears you. He sees you. He loves you with an everlasting love. Choose him today.